All right, brand.
Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! INDY! A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Renew now, drives in low, throws up a shot. It doesn't go. Tipped up and in by Anthony Leal. Indiana takes the lead.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, everybody, welcome aboard and welcome into this Tuesday edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this post-holiday weekend. Appreciate you being with us. Coming off of week one of the college football season. A good one for Indiana, good one for Purdue, good one for a lot of teams in the Big Ten. Most teams in the Big Ten. Wasn't a good one for Florida State. Has not been a good start to the year for Florida State. Ranked in the top 10 to start the season. They start 0-2. Whoo, goodness. Talk about that. Don Fischer will join us. We'll talk to Don, get his reaction from Indiana's win over the weekend. Mike DeCourcy as well, chronic Hoosier. And we'll look at the college pick'ems to see how we did. I don't think I did very well because of that spread, man. That's gonna make things different and difficult. But it's all going to be fun. Appreciate you joining us. How was it? How was your weekend? I hope you had a great one. And don't forget now, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Hard Truth Distilling, as well as Andy Moore Honda. But we'll be bringing you the Hard Truth each and every day. Looking forward to it from the Hard Truth Studios here in Bloomington. So thank you so much for being along. And thanks so much to Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling, several locations, but their number one location there in Nashville. It is an incredible place. If you have not been, I know most of you probably have, but if you haven't, holy smokes, what a place that is. It's, first of all, it's beautiful. Great place to go relax, have a meal. You can do so many things, tour the distillery. They are distilling their own products, which are available all around the country, by the way. Different places like Florida. I've seen them all over the place. So make sure you grab yourself some Hard Truth, whether it's one of those beautiful sour mash whiskeys, bourbons, or the rye whiskey, or their very, very tasty coconut rum. So grateful to have Hard Truth on board, and you'll be hearing a lot more about them as we go forward. Looking forward to talking to Don Fischer today, like I said, and seeing how I think that over the weekend, USC has kind of made an introduction to themselves to the Big Ten fandom, because they were being left out of that upper echelon by people like me as well. But now that the season has started, they get a tremendous win over LSU. That's a biggie, and that will carry a lot of weight going forward. Let's see. Try to get some of the all of the big games, but man, that was a big one. USC has not been mentioned in the top 4 much for the Big Ten. I'm wondering if they're not better than Oregon right now. Ohio State, without question, one of the, if not the top team in the Big Ten, but Oregon was getting all the love for that number 2 team. I'm not sure that it's not USC. They look pretty good. Indiana's not on does not have USC on their schedule, so we won't have to worry about that. But looking forward to seeing how the rest of this season goes, as a matter of fact. What were your thoughts of the weekend, Indiana's game? We'll talk about that, of course, with Don Fischer when he joins us here in a little bit. But I thought that it was, for the most part, what one would expect to see. The penalties on the offense which is something that is a fixable thing, was the only negative that Indiana had going in their game against Florida International, in which they won 31-7. They did a lot of things. They shut down FIU. They held them to under 200 yards total offense. Total. I'm surprised they allowed that score. I think that fatigue set in there at the end of the half or something, but didn't happen in the second half, which is usually when you'll see that, especially towards the end of the half or end of the game when you start taking players out. But Indiana did not do that. They did not relent. So a pretty good weekend. Nearly 250 yards rushing on the ground. If you can run the ball like that, you're going to be able to do things. And to establish the run first, that was important. Indiana claimed to be a running team last year and could not run across the street. They are a running team this year, but that's not their milieu. That's not everything. It's just that's just the basis. It's just a good core because they're going to be able to throw the ball around. They did not have Donovan McCulley's services, so they didn't take any shots downfield either. Big shots downfield. I'd say they're saving that. But Purdue with a big win. They score a ton of points against Indiana State, which is what you should do. So we'll talk about that later on as well as we get you caught up. And looking forward to it. Looking forward to getting Fish on the show today as well to get his thoughts. So how was your weekend? What did you do on was it Labor Day? I did nothing. I did no labor, I can tell you that. Friday night, got a shot to see, was able to meet Five Laughs. Ran and got Charlie Miller joined us on the post-game football show for a bit. And then afterwards, we got to see meet Five and see my guy Charlie. I hadn't seen him for a while, as well as Mike Lewis and his wife, current coach at Ball State Cardinals, which was very, very cool. So very happy to get to see some people and very happy to get to see you guys mainly. Saw a few people at the game. So Chris says he wasn't as impressed with the offensive production. He was expecting more. Yeah, I thought about that. It's game one. I'm going to allow for that to be not perfect. These guys have only been together since last December. You have to remember that. This is all new. So they were still able, though, to put a very productive offense together that looked good for most of the time. Other than the mistakes, the penalties. They didn't turn the ball over. But other than the penalties, I thought that they looked pretty decent. Not to say they don't have things to work on. They do, but hey, they'll do it. Philip says there's an 11-way tie for first in the college pick'em. I'm number 42 of 45. There you go. So I didn't have time to. I knew it was not going to be good because I'm like going, man, I don't think I picked them. I didn't pick. I picked against them but I didn't. I did it very, very late. Didn't have the thought, but it doesn't matter. Congratulations to you all. But that's what 11-person tie. That's what we wanted. I'm glad to see that. It makes it tougher. It makes it more fun for you guys. So we'll have to check in to see who's winning that. And speaking of winning, absolutely. How about Chase Briscoe? I'll have to reach out to Chase to get him on because raced his way into the playoffs of NASCAR. Has had a horrible season, to be honest with you. I mean, I shouldn't say horrible, but just has not really been able to put much forth. A team that is already closing down and was in contention the whole time at gee whiz, where they were. Oh, Darlington. The thing is, I remember a couple years back, he had a win in the not Bush race, but the whatever it was at that time, I don't even know, the second tier, and he raced Kurt Busch to that win, but it's a stunning win because he was out of the playoffs. And managed to race his way in with a victory at Darlington, one of the toughest tracks. Is that the track they call Too Tough to Tame? But and of all people, I think he beat Kurt Busch to the finish line to win that, which is ironic. So as I'm watching the finish here, it looks like. But yeah, I know that Kyle Larson led 263 of the 367 laps, won the first two stages, but finished fourth and lost the NASCAR Cup Series regular season title to Tyler Reddick by a single point on that. But it ended a 73 race winless streak for Stuart Haas. And foiled Kyle Larson. So what a great weekend. That's just the second win of Chase's career. First coming in 2022 at Phoenix. Not only that, Briscoe eliminates Chris Buescher from the playoffs. Buescher finished sixth, but lost the final spot on points to Ty Gibbs and Martin Truex Jr., who wrecked out early. So all kinds of stuff going on over the weekend. To catch up on, man, a Labor Day weekend, lots to get to. So that starts next. But congratulations to Chase Briscoe from right down here in Mitchell, Indiana. And like I said, I'll have to reach out to Chase and see if we can get him on sometime during the playoff run. But big congratulations to him, man. That's a hell of a job. That's unbelievable to make that happen. What else? How else was your Labor Day weekend? Lots going on, like I said, mostly in college football as Indiana picked up their first win. Florida State, man, a top 10 team that is now 0-2. And I saw an article started how Florida State can still make the playoffs. I'm like, well, Florida State should not be able to make the playoffs. Starting out 0-2. Come on, man. So there's that. Missouri, a big win, 51-0 over Murray State. Just some of the ranked teams. Number 12, Utah, 49-0 over Southern Utah. Kansas, number 22, 48-3. A lot of people expected to see that from Indiana. And I'll be honest with you, I think you would have. Had the offense just not made life tough on itself with the penalties that they picked up. I think there were 9 total penalties, and the offense had 8 of them. Mostly ticky-tack stuff. So, but one thing you didn't see, I think there was one personal foul, and that was on defense, and that's okay. That stuff's going to happen. Georgia pretty much took care of Clemson, 34-3. Ohio State, 52-6 over Akron. Oregon had a tough game with Idaho, 24-14. So that's why I'm wondering, first weekend, you're just not going to always grasp everything, but it gives you an idea, a lot more of an idea than we had going in. But USC certainly has made their case to be considered a top team in the Big Ten without question. That was a gigantic win on a neutral site against an LSU team that they are expecting a lot of as well. Penn State gets a tough win on the road down in West Virginia, 34-12. Notre Dame over Texas A&M, and that was a gigantic win for Notre Dame because they don't really have a schedule that will present a lot of problems to them this season until their final game against USC. So lots of great games this weekend. A lot of great stuff to kick it off to talk about. Miami. Is Miami back to being Miami? They go into the swamp and destroy Florida, 41-17. That's not good for good news for Florida's head coach, though, already on the warm seat, as I'd say. We'll take a break. We've got lots more coming up on the program today. Don Fischer will join us. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News as well. We'll be back with it, starting with this right after this break.
In the market for a new or used vehicle?
Brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg.
In the market for a new or used vehicle? Well, nobody beats the prices and selection of Andy Moore Honda in Bloomington. Right now, get a brand new Honda with no payments for 90 days. That's right, All
right, I'm going to let you just edit that in there, Skylar. It's
okay.
Hey, Mike, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Jim. How are you?
Good. I don't know if Don will join us or not. We got lumped over. Skylar, reach out to Don to see if he can come on either later today or when he's coming on exactly. He probably is coming on at 9. Oh, mercy. New producer again.
Yeah, all you on.
You just got rid of Mike. Yeah. There you go. Mike's back. Holy moly. I think I'm going to have a heart attack again.
Oh.
How was your weekend?
Good. Needed the weekend to recover from jet lag, man.
Where did you have to fly or go around to?
We were, my wife and I went on vacation to Milan and Lugano, Switzerland. And the older you get, man, the more that hits you.
Yeah, Lugano. Is that where one of the Olympics were? Lugano? What?
I don't think so.
Not Olympics, but why am I Lugano? That name. Maybe it was some kind of big event. I bet.
One of the most beautiful places I've ever been.
I broke a little early there, to be honest with you.
Okay.
It's coming off of the weekend or off of a holiday. We're always jacked, screwed up. Don may jump on it. John Fischer may jump on and join us. So I never heard back from him. If he does, we'll just blend that in if that's okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of at I'm at disadvantage because I didn't see IU and so.
Well, we won't talk about that with you so much. What was your weekend about?
I watched Ohio State play. I watched Penn State, West Virginia with their hurricane and all that.
10 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a lot of great games.
Yeah.
This segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday, post Labor Day. Glad to have you. Mike DeCourcy joining us. We'll have Don Fischer here in a little bit, but glad that you are with us today on this Tuesday. Mike, how are you, sir? How was your weekend?
As I mentioned in the break, my wife and I spent it recuperating from jet lag. We were on vacation in Europe the previous 8-9 days, and it really has taken a lot of time to recover from the 6-hour time difference for sure.
Yeah, that usually does. That's not like going to California and coming back. That's a little.
No.
It's a little bit more, especially when it doesn't work the right way. But that one probably, I don't know. I've never been, I guess I have, but I wonder how hard it would be if you were 7 hours west versus 7 or 8 hours east. If one is easier than the other on you.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't been to Hawaii since I was in my early 40s. So I don't remember having as much trouble with that. I mean, getting tired at 7, 8 o'clock at night has been rough. But it was a phenomenal vacation. My wife and I went to Milan in Italy and Lugano, Switzerland. We saw The Last Supper, which was a phenomenal experience, and then we went to an Inter Milan game. And I'm telling you, Jim, I will say, like, the craziest sports fans you've ever been around are like 1/10 of the Milan, the Inter Milan supporters group that are stationed in the end zone at San Siro. I've never seen anything like it. They are on the second level. They start at the second level in the end zone, and there are about 8 of them that are straddling a railing and like looking down at the field on one side and directing cheers on the other. And there are about 8 of them. They are straddling a railing. If they go to the right, they fall 50 feet, and it doesn't faze them at all. They're all going like this, and I've never seen anything as wild as this.
Soccer fans are. Brian says those aren't fans; those are hooligans.
Oh no.
But soccer fans are a breed of their own, and it's weird. I remember I meant to bring this back up a while back when there was the match. I think it was in Charlotte, and a fight broke out.
Yes.
And I'm like, why does this stuff follow soccer no matter where it is? It's crazy.
I think sometimes it's because the culture of the sport goes with. I mean, remember, this was a game that particular game was a game, I believe, between Uruguay and Colombia. I believe I know that one was Uruguay because the one Uruguay player was suspended for 5 international games. So I know that Uruguay was involved. I think it was against Colombia, and there was some concern about how the family members of the players were being treated, and that's why the one player says he went into the stands. That wasn't enough to get him his certain circumstance mitigated. 5-game suspension is pretty severe in international soccer. It's like being suspended for 3 NCAA tournament games in a way, because if those games are really precious. You're talking about most likely World Cup qualifying games for South America. And so that's a pretty severe suspension that he's facing. It's not universal that these things happen. And it's been cleaned up a lot over the last 30 years. I read a book in 1990 called Among the Thugs when, or actually it was around 94 that came out. It was a classic book. I'd look it up on YouTube. I mean, it's really well done about that culture, the hooligan culture in England. And it's really gone away for the most part. But we still have incidents like this. I was more in admiration of what I saw from Milan, from the Inter fans when I was there. It was really phenomenal to have that much enthusiasm and to sustain it for as long as they did. I mean, it started half hour before the game and continued on well into the game. My wife and I left at halftime because the logistics of getting back to our hotel were not great. So we wanted to get the experience. I wanted to get the experience. She wasn't super crazy about all those fans like I was, but got a nice taste of what it was like to be at an Inter Milan game at the San Siro, which is one of the cathedrals. It's like there's Cameron Indoor Stadium and Assembly Hall and Allen Fieldhouse, and the San Siro in Milan is like that, only maybe a little bit bigger because it has a worldwide acclaim.
Absolutely, and still one of the most popular sport in the world, that is. But right now, one of the most popular sport in America, NFL football, almost starting. College football has started. And it was a fun weekend because even though there weren't a ton of big-time games, there were enough to keep us engaged and, more importantly, give us a look, because I didn't know what USC was going to look like. Everyone's talking about Ohio State and Oregon and Michigan and Penn State, and then USC, and I'm like, yeah, I'm a little Lee Corso, not so fast, my friend, now, because that was a statement win that they had over LSU. That's a big time win. It's a Big Ten win now over the SEC, but it also is just huge for Lincoln Riley. They weren't exactly satisfied with his year last year, right, but this is a great start for them. And now, to me, you've got to put USC in the conversation with Ohio State at the top, because they just put themselves there to me.
Well, I don't think that anything that happened over the weekend kicks anybody out. I mean, I still think Oregon has to be taken seriously.
Oh, absolutely.
And Penn State went down to West Virginia and won a really nice game. And Jim, I wrote about this before vacation. We published it on the eve of the season. This is this is the most fascinating, captivating college football season of my lifetime. And as you can tell, that's a pretty long time. I grew up with college football being decided by a stupid vote. I mean, it was ridiculous. And then we got the BCS, in which the stupid vote had something to do with it. And then there were computers, and we picked out two teams and said, these are the best. And maybe they were, and maybe they weren't, because it's hard to tell when everybody's playing different schedules. And then we kind of went back to a vote again with the college football playoff, because it's just a vote of a different group of people. And finally, after all these years, we have an actual football season. Isn't it something? Isn't it thrilling that all these games matter now? Because they're going to decide who gets at-large bids, if there are at-large bids, if they are required for the particular teams we're discussing. And the games that were conference games, like the games in the ACC with Clemson. Clemson's already in a 2-game hole. Excuse me. My apologies to Clemson, the other team suing the ACC, Florida State, already in a 2-game hole in the ACC. They're going to have to rally spectacularly to have a chance to get into the college football playoff. And I think that these are all really exciting developments. I will tell you, I covered in, I think it was 2016, Penn State, believe they played Wisconsin in the in the Big Ten college football championship game. And I remember thinking, how ridiculous is it that this game doesn't mean anything beyond the championship of the Big Ten? That's a big deal. Winning the Big Ten championship is a big deal. It was a big deal for Penn State that night. But it should have conveyed entry into a postseason tournament to decide the best team in college football. And it didn't. Instead, it just meant, hey, you get to go to the Rose Bowl and play SC in a game that it'll be fun, but it won't matter. And that now we don't have that anymore. And I can't tell you how thrilled I am that college football is finally deciding its champion the way the grown-up sports do.
And I want to bring in Don Fischer to the show now. And I know you did not get a chance to watch the Indiana game over the weekend, but Don, first of all, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Cannot complain. Neither of you two want to listen to it. For certain, Don Fischer joining Mike DeCourcy on with us, of course. I'm sure you know Mike.
I do know Mike, and he's one of the best writers in the country and always has been.
Absolutely. Just like so we've got one of the best writers and the best play-by-play man in all of college athletics right now. So how about that for something?
It's a thrill to be in the company of a legend like Don. He is the absolute best.
Don, you got to open the season the other day. Indiana taking on a team in Florida International that we expected in Indiana win. Didn't know how it was going to be because we hadn't seen anything, all the talk, all the hype, but they get the win. For the most part, I thought they looked pretty good. If you take the penalties away, they're probably scoring another 3 touchdowns, maybe. I don't know, but that was the only negative to their entire day was the penalties, which is a very fixable thing.
There's no question. It was a really good performance. I thought winning over Florida International Florida International is not a superstar team by any stretch, but they're a talented team. They've got good players. Their coach is in his third year there, and he's won every place he's been. So to the fact that they were able to beat Florida International, I thought was impressive. The thing that the shocking thing to me about this football game, Indiana didn't tackle to the ground but one practice in spring. That was the spring game. And they didn't tackle to the ground in any practice this fall. And they went out, and I thought the defense was hitting people. They were after people. They were aggressive. You would have thought that they wouldn't be that sharp on the defensive side of the football, and they astonished me. I'm honest. I'm being honest about that. I just didn't think that this team would be that good of a tackling team, especially in the first game of the season, having done nothing but thud. And I'm so impressed. I am so impressed with what Curt Cignetti has done here at the outset of this season, and based on what he did through the spring and the transfer portal. This guy is really a good football coach. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to get his players to do the things that he wants them to do, and he set a culture already at this school that I've just not seen in a long, long time.
And Don, it's funny you mentioned that, because tackling is something that came to my mind only because I remember it being such an issue a year ago where that kept coming up. Oh, we're not tackling well. We're not doing this well. Boy, they didn't miss tackles. There weren't missed tackles at all. And that kind of stood out. It shouldn't, but it did because of that prior reason. But I'm glad you brought that up because I would have forgotten to do so. More importantly, Indiana gets a win for Curt Cignetti in his first game. It probably could have been more like these 40 to 50 point games we saw if it hadn't been for the penalties, like I said. But other than that, the defense holds a team, doesn't matter who it is, to under 200 total yards of offense.
Right.
That's gigantic.
Well, it was. There's no question about that. And like I said, I'm really impressed with what Cignetti is able to do here in the early part of this year with all these new faces. This team had 30 transfer portal players come in, along with 16 freshmen and a number of other faces as well. To put this all together in the first ball game of the season and to do it the way that they did it, truly impressed with that. I do think that the place, fell off a little bit in the second half. There were more penalties. But I also think something that had something to do with our fan base that just continues to disappoint me in the sense of staying for the entire ball game. I mean, you get 100,000 fans at Michigan. You get 100,000 fans at Penn State. Places they're playing in the afternoon. It's hot in all these places as well. And what do you see? Those fans sticking in the stands, screaming. The atmosphere is terrific. And at Indiana at halftime, the student body left. And we had maybe 10,000 fans still in the stands at the end of that ball game. That's got to change at Indiana. I know I'm railing at this point a little bit, but it's just the truth. I mean, a fan base has got to help your team. And honestly, I didn't think the fan base did that at all on Saturday.
That is the hard truth. And it's the actual, and Mike, that's something that I plan on talking about too. And that's not something that's not my job really, but I feel the same way. It drives me insane because I'm like, all right, what do you people want? They're winning now. You have the opportunity to see it winning. I don't care what happened in 2024 or 1994. That is irrelevant. None of these students were in school, more than a couple of years ago. So that's not a good excuse. And like my daughter goes to Ole Miss, a different program, I'll grant you, but they're winning a game 50-0 or whatever, and the people are still there. And so that's what I don't get is they're leaving they're starting to leave before the halftime hits, and it doesn't even matter what's going on. Right. And when people say that there's no culture, blah, 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 well, they're not helping it. They're part of it being no culture. And that does drive me a little insane because I want to cover a winner. It's a lot more fun. And having the fans stay in the stands makes that a more opportune thing to happen for this team. They need that support, I think. I mean, but Mike, you've covered tons of sports, tons of different venues. And probably none quite like Indiana football and their fans, how they are. It's a weird relationship.
Well, I think some of that comes from just the fact that there hasn't been great success, and then I think also there is the problem of the opposition. College football fans there's just as is the case in some instances in basketball, have grown tired of that disparity. I think that you need games like that. You need games like Florida International in order to sort of work through, what am I going to be? What are we going to be? I think those games are valuable, but for the fan, it's less so because they come, they show some support until when they're certain that everything is locked, and they often, and this isn't just Indiana, they'll often leave and get a head start home. If it's a big stadium where they have 100,000 people, you want to get a head start back, or you might want to go back to your tailgate and have fun and keep an eye on the game. And you don't feel like you need to be out there because you know that your team is going to win. So I think that's a problem that really exists throughout college football. That won't be a problem when you get to the game against Maryland, for instance. I don't think you'll see that problem, or when Nebraska comes in, especially if the Hoosiers are able to take this great start and build on it through a schedule that is not easy by any stretch, but it offers the opportunity to build success.
Yeah, I think that's right too. The one thing that my concern is that we don't want this to continue on to be this kind of a problem. And granted, Florida International is not a draw. Western Illinois this Friday night is not going to be a draw. Western's terrible, at least from the standpoint of their first ball game, and they've got a new coach, and they've had a program that has been struggling for a number of years now. So this is not going to be a real test either. So the key here is you've got to have a fan base that understands that the fans do make a difference. And if you understand that, and you've got to help your team develop that energy in the building, it's such an important part of it. But at Indiana, we've been dealing with this for years now. And granted, part of it's because Indiana's success has not been what other schools' success has been. That's a big part of this as well. You've got to be able to build it. Cignetti is here to do that. I think he is going to get it done, and the fan base has to respond to that. And hopefully that takes place. But I didn't like what I saw the first game. I can say that, to be honest.
Yeah, and I get people talking about, oh, you got to do this to get fans. I'm talking about the ones that are already there. They had a good start of people. The students were full, and man, it's like first opportunity, they were gone. I mean, everybody was gone. I understand the humidity was a little, but it wasn't that hot of a day. So I'm like, all right, quit whining. If you're going to go to the game, stay at the damn thing. But I guess that's easy for me to say, and don't want to beat that dead horse. Good start for Indiana. Good start to the season. Now they come back with another game, which is important because, Don, they get 2 games before they'll travel to Los Angeles to take on UCLA. UCLA had the game against Hawaii in which they struggled, and that's their only game until they play Indiana here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, they have a bye week this week, so we will not see anything about UCLA this week at all. So not a lot to go on with a new coach and so on, as far as scouting that team is concerned. But the key here is what Indiana does. And without question, this ball game on Friday night gives them another chance to kind of hone their skills a little bit, because I don't think this is going to be a close game. And if it is a close game, that's going to be a little concerning in itself. But at the same time, it does give you another opportunity to get your guys out there, get the timing better. Because I thought the second half for Indiana against Florida International kind of tailed off a little bit. It wasn't as sharp. But look, this is the first game of the season under a new coach, a new program, a whole lot of new faces on this program. In fact, I think transfer portal wise, they had the second most transfer portal players of the country coming in. So you've got so many new people there, and most of these new people are playing, at least from the transfer portal. I mean, you've got James Madison has 13 players that came from that school to Indiana following Cignetti. So they are intermingled with all the guys that are holdovers and other new players that came out of the portal as well. It takes some time to get all that down, but I was really impressed with what I saw on Saturday. I think it's something really big to build on, and if they can come back and make a lot of improvements this week and get those penalties taken care of, I think this is going to be a fun team to watch the entire year. I do believe that. I think the one thing that can derail this team this year is injuries, because they are not a real deep team. They don't have a deep offensive line. The offensive line, I think, is better than it's been in quite some time. Bob Bostad has done a terrific job at that, taking over the line play over the last 2 years now. I think this guy is a really good coach, and I think the guys are playing really well, but they've already had one critical injury there in Nick Kidwell, who was going to be a 6-year player or a 7th-year player here, who came from James Madison. He's gone for the season. I think right now they only have 7, maybe 8 guys they think can be factors on that offensive line. They can't afford injuries. That's going to be the biggest deal for this football program all season long, because they've got some of those same issues from a depth standpoint on the defensive side of the football. So anyway, long story short here, I'm excited about what we've seen thus far. I'm really excited about what this coach has brought to the table. And I think Indiana is going to be a winning program this season. I just do.
Absolutely, and I agree with you. Don Fischer with us. We'll have him back on Monday next week, so we're back on a regular schedule. No live football show this week. Radio show it is recorded because of the wonky week. Correct, Don, and you're back the following week on Thursday at Hoosier Hanks East.
Right. We'll be pre-recorded. It's already recorded, just so you know. Inside baseball. So at any rate, it's already recorded. We did it yesterday, and the coach was good, and the show is going to be very entertaining. It'll be tomorrow night, Wednesday night at 7:05. But the following week, we'll be back at Hoosier Hanks, which is the restaurant that we're now having the show on, and the coach will be there for the entire show. So we're looking forward to that. Thanks for having me, you guys. And Mike, good to see you, man. You do a great job, buddy.
Thanks, Don. You too.
You bet. See ya.
Two of the best joining us here right now, Mike DeCourcy and Don Fischer. We're back with more, including more with Mike DeCourcy after this break.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville.
All right. Sorry about this truncated day today, Mike.
That's all right. I understand.
And I don't know why I'm not meaning to set this up like that. Yeah, that's better. Oh, good things about holidays and then bad things about holidays. And if this is the worst thing, I'll take it, I guess. Except I need another one, I think. I need a holiday from the holiday.
There you go.
Oh, how was your weekend overall?
Yeah, it was good. We didn't do very much after we got back. We didn't get back. We were supposed to get back like around 4 o'clock, I think, on Friday. We didn't end up getting back till almost midnight. Our flight was delayed. Like 4 hours from JFK to Pittsburgh. And then when we landed, a thunderstorm, lightning and everything rolled through Pittsburgh, through the airport. So they couldn't get our bags off the plane. They're not allowed to go out there if there's lightning. So we were stuck in the airport for another hour. So it took a while, but so we didn't do much the last couple of days. We had family over yesterday for dinner and it was good. How about you?
I did as little as possible once I got past that Saturday.
Yeah.
Sunday, just chilling, and the same on Monday. It was beautiful. The weather incredible. Finally, after we had that bad week of August weather, which that's what you're supposed to have. But man, oh man, is it back to feeling like September? Although it is, we're September the 3rd already. How'd that sneak? We lost 2 days. Is that right? Wow.
Jim, about 45 seconds.
Thank you, sir.
We got about 10 minutes. We need a cat. We went way over on that last segment.
Yeah. It's just kind of screwed up. A screwed up Tuesday.
All right.
A Muse Day, a Monday, Tuesday. Oh, mama.
10 seconds.
This segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday, coming to you from the Hard Truth Studios. Indiana Sports Beat Radio presented by Hard Truth Distilling. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News still with us. And Mike, it was a fun weekend of college football for me. Big problems for Florida State. Man, ranked in the top 10 to start the season, 0-2. I don't know the last time a top 10 team started out 0-2, but it ain't good.
And not, playing two routine conference opponents. Not like, they started the season in the top 10 and then they had to play Ohio State and Alabama. I mean, they're Boston College has a new coach for a reason. Georgia Tech just getting some momentum going after a difficult period, and they're starting to move forward a little bit. To lose those two games was a real statement about where Florida State stands right now. I have not admired what's gone on at Florida State in the last year. Not Norvell and the football team, but everything that's gone on above them. The lawsuit, the blaming the ACC for every little thing that goes wrong. Oh, it rained. Oh, it's the ACC's fault. I mean, all kinds of garbage like that. The ACC has been really good to Florida State, really good for more than 30 years. And the minute, they committed to Florida, they committed to the ACC, I think in 2016 for a 20-year period. And now they're mad because somebody else is getting paid more. Well, like you couldn't have imagined that somebody else might get paid more in 2016 and said, I'm in on this, except, you could have done that. They didn't. And now they want to blame the league for that. I find that reprehensible, Jim. I find that their position to be untenable. And honestly, I don't know why any league would want them based on how they've comported themselves as members of the ACC.
Yeah, they're not making life easy on themselves for certain. They certainly did not. What's the book? How to win over friends or make friends?
Win friends and influence people.
There you go.
My dad read that book when I was a kid, so there you go.
They're not doing a very good job of that right now. They need a couple of copies sent down to Florida State, to the headquarters, baby, in Tallahassee. But other things that are going on this weekend, Indiana, we've talked about this schedule that Indiana has, and this is what presents them with such a great opportunity this year if the changes that we're thinking have come about. And now after this first weekend, Michigan State is on their schedule. They barely get by an FAU team at home. UCLA struggles to get by a Hawaiian team at 16-13. Northwestern barely wins 13-6. That's what, if you're Indiana, that's what you want to see, because those are games you want to really put in the win category, because there are going to be games like Nebraska and Maryland that are probably going to be sneaky tough. Maryland puts 50 points on the board in an opening game. Nebraska 40-7 in their win with a true freshman quarterback. That is of great importance, because by the time Nebraska makes their way to Bloomington, that's going to be 2 months from now. He's no longer going to be a freshman. And to start out the way he did, that's got to be something very, very happy that they're to see in Lincoln for those guys. But I think this is going to be a hell of a Big Ten season. I think it's going to be fun because we don't know. There's so much we don't know. USC, like I said earlier in the show, man, they look pretty daggone good. That's a pretty good win. Nebraska looked good in their opening performances I just talked about. And then, but to see a team like Indiana, if they're able to do what I think they can do, and I think that at a minimum, they're going to go 5-1 over their first 6 games. Because I think they win that UCLA game. Northwestern, I think that they go up and win that game on the pitch. Maryland's a home game, but that's going to be tough.
It is.
That will not be an easy game. Maryland has had a good defense last year. They've had to replace Tonga Vailoa at quarterback, but apparently they've done so successfully. When you can put 50 points on the board, I don't care who you're playing. Indiana had an easy game, but they couldn't manage that because they made enough mistakes. They couldn't do that. So if you have a team that does not make those kinds of mistakes early on, you're just that much better.
It is a really fascinating schedule. I agree with you, Jim, because you have that ramp up with the game that's already in the books and then the Western game. And then you do have to go on the road halfway across the country to play UCLA. But as you mentioned, UCLA struggled in their game against Hawaii. They were not impressive. So you have to feel like you've got a shot. You're going into a building that is one of the great venues in college sports, but it's not one that's often packed and intimidating in terms of favoring the Bruins. They don't often fill the Rose Bowl. So a chance to for maybe a chunk of your fans to go out and see what it's like to go to a game in Pasadena and enjoy a few days in Southern California. And I don't think it will be overwhelmingly difficult to get tickets. I haven't looked, but that's a place that they don't often sell out. So I think that you've got that, and then you have the home game against Charlotte, which really struggled in its opener. Charlotte's got a reasonably good college football recent history, but they did not play well in their opener. So all that leads into the Maryland game, and I think they have a chance to be in a really good position in that game. And Maryland's going to be very difficult. You mentioned they scored 50 points, and they didn't score 50 points on a 1AA team. They did on maybe a poor FBS team, but still, UConn is at that, plays at that level as an independent right now. There's a lot of talk about them joining the Big 12. There's 2 elements of that. I don't know why the Big 12 would want UConn as a football member on the one side, and I don't know why UConn would want to put its basketball programs, its phenomenal basketball programs, into the Big 12 when the Big East has been so good to both of them. But that's a really struggling football team right now, and Maryland just absolutely took it apart. So a great opportunity for the Hoosiers to get a chance to get into that game in good circumstance and take a big swipe at what would be a significant win.
Absolutely. And next week we'll have to talk about the Pac-12 and the Mountain West had a self-imposed deadline for a 2025 schedule agreement. It's passed, and there's no extension. The future schedules of Oregon State, Washington State up in the air. What's going to happen with them, we don't know. But we'll have to talk about that next week. What's up next for you, brother?
Getting back into the football swing, where we start the NFL this week. College football is going to continue to ramp up. And I'm really pumped about this college football season. I can't tell you how exciting it is to see all the games matter. I remember when they started the college football playoff, they brought in the campaign. Every game counts, I think was the way they phrased it. And by the 10th week, you're like, that game doesn't count. That game doesn't count. Well, it's not going to be like that anymore.
Nope, not at all. Me too, buddy. I'm here for it. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News. Make sure you're giving him a follow. Appreciate you, sir. Look forward to it next week.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, sir. Mike DeCourcy joining us. We've got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're back with it right after this.
This segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper.
Yes.
Got 1 minute, Jim.
Chronic, how's it going, brother?
What up?
How was your weekend?
My weekend was entirely too short, but way too much fun.
I hear that.
Always nice to see the flag flying again.
There is, I didn't even see that. I was busy doing so much that I didn't even notice it. And
I was curious. I was curious if they carry that on, but I suppose when you build a flagpole that big, you better fly something on it.
That's right. What, Skylar?
Yeah, about 15 seconds.
All right.
This segment is brought to you by Freethink Apparel.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday. We are in September, baby. And I love it. I love the weather. It feels like some September weather, football weather. Joining us now, Chronic Hoosier, coming off of college weekend, week 1, Chronic, and it was a lot going on. A fun one if you're a Hoosier fan, if you're a Purdue fan, if you're most fans except for Florida State, it seems like. But a great weekend for college football. My only issue is we've talked a little bit about the fans, and boy, everybody likes to make excuses of like, well, if you win, if you do this. Well, they did win. They were winning. There were a ton of people in the stands and they were winning the game, but yet they still leave. And I'm like, I don't get it. I really don't. I was a student at that school. I don't remember leaving games at halftime. Why would I leave at halftime? But you're going to get a 1,000 people argue back, but half of those people have probably never even been to a game.
Yeah, I think my takeaway on the whole attendance thing is it's certainly unfortunate to see, a respectable crowd by Indiana standards. Recognizing that it's Labor Day, the last true weekend of summer, really. one of the last warm weekends perhaps we're going to have, at least in a minute, in the foreseeable forecast future. But there's a lot going on. I was a little leery about what attendance was going to look like, because we went out Friday night when I got off work and ended up sitting at the patio at Uptown. And it was hot during the day. Don't get me wrong. I understand that. But it was 88 degrees and low humidity by the time we got there. It really started to cool off once the sun was starting to get lower. And we had the entire block to ourselves, Jim, for like almost an hour and a half. Not a single patio diner on all of Kirkwood between Walnut and Washington, which was wild to me, given everything going on. 4th Street Fest in town and whatnot. Went to Malibu afterwards for a nightcap, maybe a third full. So I was, based off, what little traffic I saw Friday night, I was pleased to see Saturday's attendance. But at the end of the day, old habits die hard, man. This has been a perpetual issue for Indiana, is getting butts in the seat. And then once you get them there, getting them to stay there. And, it's a habit. It's unfortunate, but it's something that fans have grown accustomed to. We often have put on a more enjoyable or entertaining tailgate than the product that we put on the field. And as much as fans would like to see that change, it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't help when you're playing, less than stellar opponent, I suppose. But at the end of the day, there's plenty of schools that play cupcakes all over that are able to keep the stands mostly full. So it's something that they're definitely going to have to work on. But the first step is getting them in the door and then give them a reason to stay. Now, hopefully you don't want it to be because we're in a nail biter. But you know what? It's one of those things that can come back to bite you when, it's late in the game and you're trying to make a stand defensively and you don't have the full-throated fan base behind you to affect the other team's play calling. So there's very real implications. But I also think one of those things where as the season goes on, give them more reason to stay, man. You can't expect everything to change overnight. But you continue to win, you continue to cover, which we love. And the fans will come, man. They will absolutely come and they will stay. But it's not going to happen overnight.
Nope, and that is the hard truth, unfortunately, coming to you from the Hard Truth Studios here in Bloomington, and grateful to have Hard Truth along for the ride, as we said. Make sure you're going out and enjoying some Hard Truth products. They got some great ones. But, yes, I agree, man. But looking forward now, Indiana gets a win, a comfortable win. That game was never in doubt. There was never any time where there was concerns of the team. And like I said, the only issue that you could have is the penalties, which that's a fixable thing, especially when you hear Curt Cignetti talk about previously, and he said it plenty of times, is James Madison. They were one of the most least penalized teams in the country. So I think that is something that I know that they're already working on, but they will continue to work on and get that down, because that was about the only negative that I would say that I saw on the field.
Yeah, I thought it was a really clean game, penalties aside. I thought I was especially impressed with the run blocking, quite frankly. And now I'm curious to see how that holds up as you go against more skilled opponents. But I thought they did a phenomenal job. I was really impressed with the play calling, quite frankly. I thought it was dynamic. I thought it was multifaceted, and I thought it did a good job to show off a lot of the talent Indiana has, both in the backfield as well at the receiver position. The only thing that kind of left me with a bad taste in my mouth, other than that late first half touchdown they allowed, because you love to see a shutout, but not as much as you love to see the cover. Donovan McCulley. Hopefully he just got his bell rung a little bit and he's cleared to go. But you never want to see any of your guys, but especially your top guys, go down early in the season.
Exactly. That's one of the most important things that came out of this game, was that they came out of it healthy. And it's always, we've seen first games where teams have lost their quarterback for the season, no less. So coming out of any and every game healthy is the most important thing, I think. First of all, well, getting a win and then coming out of the game healthy, I guess, would be right there behind it. But they did both of those for the most part. And so this week now they will face another team and a game that they should win even easier than last week. But more importantly, this is going to give them a week to clean things up before they head out west to Los Angeles.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things that coaches love for things to go to plan, but they also need some tape that they can grind on and some butts they can chew over it. And they certainly left a lot of room for improvement. Some of the penalties were certainly unforced and unnecessary, but at the end of the day, they were by no means insurmountable. But you definitely want to be able to get that cleaned up and just get sharper with each week, and a little bit sharper, a little bit better. I felt like they were really effective in the play calling. I assume that they left quite a bit to be seen, which is not uncommon this time of year. And you love to see that. You don't want to have to get deep into your bag of tricks in order to get the ball up and down the field. And they did a pretty good job. I don't think they took a lot of unnecessary risks. But like the fact that they're even sprinkling in some modest trick plays early on, it just tells you that they're feeling pretty good about what they got and how it's running. And that was always going to be the big question with so many new faces is, can you get everybody on the same page, get them all pulling in the same direction? And how quickly can you do that? And, to see the effectiveness as evident as it was this early in the season, I think only bodes for good things to come because, the goal is to get better with each passing game. And when you get passing grades on almost all of your groups on game one, it's a heck of a place to start. And certainly a welcome sight for Indiana fans that they perhaps haven't got to enjoy a lot in the past.
Yeah, I'm looking through the Big Ten games of this past weekend. Washington, a winner over Weber State, but they pulled in nearly 67,000 people at home. Oregon was at home, and they were at 57,000. I'm not sure what that one holds, but I'm bet that's pretty close. UCLA was on the road, and they played in front of just 15,000 people. Michigan, of course, 110 plus. Nebraska, 86,000 plus. Northwestern playing up on the pitch, 12,000 people. That's going to be a weird game when Indiana heads up there, man. Indiana is showing 44,000 on the attendance meter, and that bests the 35,000 that Maryland brought in. So they've got that going for them. They weren't the worst. Purdue had nearly 60,000 people in attendance. West Virginia, hosting Penn State, had over 62,000. Wisconsin, 75,000. Michigan State, 70,000 people in a 16-10 to win over Florida Atlantic. So Illinois, they're 43,000, so they're just less than. But Rutgers, 47, almost 48,000 people hosting Howard. So, for any other people that want to talk about, well, there's no culture. Rutgers doesn't have culture. Rutgers doesn't win. They just pulled in 48,000 people. So I'm going to harp on that until people change. I am. It's a little aggravating, to be honest with you, but that is what it is. Coming up this weekend, Indiana with game 2 of the season. And expect a lot of the improvement you usually see with teams happens between weeks 1 and weeks 2. That's going to be interesting to see with Indiana, where they improve. Obviously, the penalties is one of the areas. Also, they're going to have to start throwing the ball a little more. I don't think they want to show a whole lot right now because they don't have to.
Yeah, and that's the thing I alluded to earlier. When you can be effective and still be pretty vanilla, you're in a good spot. Now that can change at a moment's notice depending on the degree of difficulty in front of you at the time. But I think that was probably one of the more welcome sights, was an effective run game, some really, really gaping holes, quite honestly. I thought the line did a great job of opening up room. Pass protection was pretty solid throughout most of the day. And at the end of the day, I felt like QB did a great job of taking what was there and not really forcing it when he didn't have to. And you'd love to see points on every drive, but at the end of the day, sometimes it's best just to get the ball back in your defense's hands, let them do their thing, and live to fight another drive. But you got to love 4 for 4 in the red zone, man. That is certainly a sight for sore eyes.
Absolutely. And Purdue with a big win. Of course, that's not on the schedule until the very end, but they were picked to finish last in the Big Ten and to get a 49-0 win over Indiana State. Huge, but they've got a major opponent coming in this weekend with the Fighting Irish coming to West Lafayette.
Yeah, and hot off the heels of a big win down there at Texas A&M. So it should be a really a bellwether week for Purdue to figure out exactly where they stand. And my guess is probably a little better than where folks thought they would be, but not quite ready to contend for any sort of conference relevance this year.
So week one of the Big Ten, what are your takes out of the conference?
It's a banner day for the conference, but for Minnesota, a heck of a day for Big Ten football brand. Now we'll see if it can sustain. What I was sadly reminded of was just how in bed a lot of the national media is with the SEC, and I get it. I understand it. The ESPN affiliation certainly drives a little bit more of that narrative due to their financial stake in the league, but I thought all in all, it was a great day for the newly expanded Big Ten. I haven't seen any of the TV numbers, but there looks to be a lot of viable competitive teams in the league this year. So should be an interesting title race. But at the end of the day, all I care about, man, Indiana Hoosiers are 1-0. We're undefeated.
Yeah, Minnesota, the only Big Ten team taking a loss, as they had a game against North Carolina at home. So a little surprising to see that loss of all the losses there were no losses, but that was the only one. The Big Ten,
that was a game they had at hand up until late fourth as well.
So the Big Ten goes 17-1 to open up week one with that weird loss, but Indiana, and not only that, I was talking with Don Chronic about some of the future opponents of Indiana had, where we can pick apart Indiana's game with the penalties, but Michigan State, man, they were lucky to get out of that. Well, they win over Florida Atlantic 16-10. UCLA escapes Hawaii with a 3-point win. Northwestern wins 13-6. Those are games on Indiana's schedule that should probably those are going to be wins for me. Now, Nebraska and Maryland, they answered some questions. They're going to be tougher games for the Hoosiers. And as a matter of fact, I've said many times, there's a road to 6-0 for Indiana, but that road is going to go through Maryland at home. No doubt. Maryland put 50 points on the board. That's with a new quarterback. So they're coming back pretty strong quickly.
Yeah, no, but I don't think anybody ever assumed it would be, it's going to be a cakewalk. I think we've talked quite a bit about the favorability of the schedule. But I think more than anything, what you're going to see is the meat of the Big Ten schedule is going to be something that Indiana should be competitive in. I'm not saying they're going to be favored in every one of those games, but they should at least be competitive. And if they win some that they're predicted to lose, and perhaps they lose some they're predicted to win, so be it. But more than anything, I think what you want to see is at least a team that's capable of competing day in, day out with pretty much anybody in the league. The Ohio States, the Michigans, the Penn States. Those are always going to be a handful. The Oregons, now you can probably add them into that boat. But at the end of the day, bowl eligibility has often been determined by how Indiana fares against the middle of the conference. And you've got to pick up those games. You've got to defend home field. That's always going to be the case, but especially on a year where you've been gifted with 8 of those home games, you got to make the most out of them and try to steal them when you can on the road.
Absolutely. Chronic Hoosier, appreciate you, my friend.
Thanks as always for having me. We'll catch you next week, guys.
You betcha. Chronic Hoosier joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Plenty more coming up, plenty to talk about as college football underway. Back with more right after this.
This segment is brought to you by Freethink Apparel.
Skylar, were you able to get Curt Cignetti clips?
No, I emailed you why I got locked out of all the social media.
How did you get locked out of all the social media?
Well, whenever I tried to go and log into one of them, it asked me or it sent a code to the previous person that was in there. So I'm guessing that's either Nick or you or someone. But when it said the code, when it said the code, I was locked out. Then after that, I was locked out of everything.
I'd say this is the one that I forgot from the last time. Okay, good solid performance in the opener, etc. There were some I'd say this is the one that I forgot from the last time.
All right, I'll play it myself. Tradition is set. Excuses, people. No, all this is excuses. I'm telling you, I've never seen. I'm sorry, but Indiana football fans are just the worst. I don't want to hear tradition. There's no freaking tradition when you have students that weren't even in school. So,
yep, I agree.
Well, I'm just
you got 1 minute
to the people there.
Oh, I know. 30 seconds. All right, 15 seconds.
This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday, post-Labor Day weekend. I hope you had a great one. Opening weekend of college football, week one, that is. And it was a good one for all of the area teams. Indiana winning, Purdue winning, Notre Dame getting a gigantic win down in or over Texas A&M. That was absolutely a huge win for Notre Dame because they don't play a big schedule this year. They're, most of their teams are ACC teams, which it's a watered down conference right now. But Notre Dame starts off big with a game and a win over Texas A&M, and they'll have the opportunity to end it big with a game against USC of the Big Ten, who started off this weekend with a huge game themselves, getting a big win over LSU in Las Vegas. So that took a little of the heat off of Lincoln Riley there in Los Angeles. Also this weekend, well, of course, and yesterday, even though it was a holiday, Curt Cignetti, met with the media. And so let's hear what his comments were.
Okay. Good solid performance in the opener. Did a lot of positive things. Like the way our defense swarmed to the ball, put pressure on the quarterback, TFLs. Offensively strung together 4 straight drives that averaged 75 yards, 11 plus plays, 3 straight touchdowns, and then a field goal. We hit that halfback pass, which we normally do in practice, and we're looking at 4 TDs, but had a couple clunker drives there, third quarter, fourth quarter offensively. Penalties, obviously, too many on offense. Got to cut those out. I think we had 7 second 11 pluses and 6 third and 11 pluses. Some were 17, 21. So things that we can teach on tape, obviously, all correctable. Last drive of the second quarter, crucial missed assignment on 3rd and 5. We should have that play nailed. Guy didn't do what he's supposed to do, but like the way we came up. So we didn't finish the second half the way we want to finish the second half. That's always a point of emphasis. But we did start the third quarter by stopping them and driving down the field, and we ended up kicking a field goal. Should have scored touchdowns. So special teams was solid, and I thought the effort was good. And we're excited to play again Friday.
And that's pretty much, I agree with basically everything he says there. Yeah, and pretty much we have said there's not a lot of negatives for them. There's some stuff to clean up, and that was it. And that's okay. That's what you want to get the win in week 1 and find out what you need to clean up. And that's exactly what Indiana has done here. So looking forward as they move forward in their schedule. And that should be an easy 2-0 mark for them as they prepare to travel out west after that to take on UCLA in their first conference game of the year. And that will be of huge importance to Indiana because if they can get off to a 3-0 start, that will turn into a 4-0 start with the game after that against Charlotte back home in Bloomington with their final non-con game. And just being 4-0 in their first season under Curt Cignetti, that's huge right there. I definitively think that at the worst, they're going to be 5-1 after the first 6 games of this season. And if you can get to 5-1 with 6 games remaining, only having to win one of those games to become bowl eligible, and I see 1, 2, 3 probable, most likely wins on the backside. Do the math, people. That's an 8-win regular season. And right about where I think that they're going to be. 7-5 has been my bottom for the whole time. But I think the 8-win mark is one that you need to look forward to. This team is going to get better. So are all the other teams, though. You can't put that off. But I think Indiana's just further along than a lot of these teams. I think Indiana's further along than UCLA. I think Indiana's further along than Michigan State. I think they're further along than Northwestern. So those are wins. Now they're going to have battles, as I've talked about. Nebraska is not going to be an easy game at all, even though it's in Bloomington. It's kind of ironic. 2 of the tougher games that Indiana is going to have are going to be at home. Home against Maryland, home against Nebraska. You've got Washington, Michigan, and Purdue as well, so it's not like it's an easy schedule, but I think it's going to be a hell of a fun year. So Aiden Fischer did an outstanding job defensively. I think Brian Haynes' defense was tremendous. Like I said, they held Florida International to under 200 total yards for the game. That's huge in Division I football, people. Huge. And you heard Coach Cignetti. I mean, he pointed most of the things out. Some of this just it's just cleanup. But let's hear another question for Curt Cignetti.
the defense, but just how encouraging is it to see so many different guys getting involved in that disruptiveness? You talk about tackles for lost, sacks. It felt like it wasn't just maybe one or two guys making plays.
That's what I'm used to seeing, to be honest with you. That's kind of how we play defense. We like to pride ourselves on being real fast and physical and disruptive up front and creating a lot of different looks for the defense and being really good against the run. I think we gave up 53 yards rushing, less than 200 total yards. And we've always been really good against the run and had TFLs and sacks. So it was nice to see that carry over with this group. And we've added faces and to the defense, and a lot of guys did get involved, like you said.
Less than 50-something yards rushing. Think about that. That's what teams were doing to Indiana last year. Indiana wasn't getting to 100 yards as a team. Not the case in this opening game. Nearly 250 yards rushing on the ground. That's a good sign to start things off. Partly because it wasn't just one guy. You had a multitude of guys that were making that happen for Indiana. See if I can get these stats pulled up pretty quickly to pull them all out. But you had so many running backs taking the ball and running with it. Indiana's rushing totals. Mr. Green, 82 yards on just 5 attempts. Of course, he gets that big 51-yarder and the touchdown in the second half, which put him up huge with a 16.4 yard per carry average. But Tyson Lawton was the man carrying the load for the most part. 16 attempts, 74 yards, 4.6 yards per rush. Justice Ellison, he carried the ball 10 times, 68 yards, 6.8 yards per carry. Miles Price, 1 attempt, 12 yards. So it's all positive. All positive. And from a passing standpoint, Curtis Rourke, 15 to 24. They didn't ask him to do a whole lot. His quarterback rating at one point was up to like 160, 170 at some points during the game. He throws one touchdown, 0 picks, 63% completion rate. Pretty good. I mean, there's just not a lot that you're going to complain about. But yeah, holding any team to 53 yards rushing, that's pretty good. And 129 yards total through the air is all that they gave up. 182 total yards. I mean, Indiana had that in like the first quarter almost, it seemed like. So you got to be happy. You got to be happy. Indiana Fever on a hot run as they keep rolling. Yeah, they've been moving. Everything is getting better, man. The more you play together, the more things get together. And just a great season that could be coming together for them. Ross says that the early projection has IU versus LSU in Nashville for the Music City Bowl. He'd take that close to home. Well, yeah, I'd like to see Indiana, Kentucky playing that, but that would be a way of getting two rivals to play. And that almost happened a couple of years ago, and Tennessee kind of stepped on that one, but that would have been nice. But yes, Indiana has yet to play in the Music City Bowl. And that's one that they'll probably definitely be in line for. It depends if they win too many games or not. If they win 8 games, with there's being so many teams in the Big Ten this year, that may knock them down right to that. So, yeah, we'll have to see. But way too early for bowl predictions, man. We're 1 game in to the season. So I guess I know that's fun for everybody to do that. But there's no doubt in my mind, Indiana is going to a bowl game. I've said that early and often. 7-5 is the bottom for me. I think that they probably win 8 games, but all that depends on health, injuries. I know that they're going to get better, but also these other teams are going to get better. But the ones like Purdue, now Purdue could end up being a very, very much tougher game at the end of the season than initially thought. Hudson Card looked very good in the Boilermakers opening game. So they're going to have an entire season to get ready. Ohio State looks good already. Holy crap. Michigan didn't exactly light the world on fire. And as I said about the Wolverines, I've got questions about them anyway. They've got so much crap going on up there in Ann Arbor, and they lost a ton. So we'll see that. But Aiden Fischer, you can see on the ticker, 4 solo tackles, 7 assists, and a sack this weekend. He was the man. Jalen Walker, 5 solo tackles and 3 assists. Amari Farrell, solo tackle and assisted on an assist, and he got the pick. 4 sacks and an interception. It's not bad. I'd like to have seen a few more sacks against this particular team, but like I said, opening weekend, what are you going to do? Indiana looking good. They got the win. So we can take a break. You talk about now, Skylar, we need to take a break now, or we still got one coming up?
We got one coming up. Yeah.
Okay, I'll wait. All right, I'll just wait. But looking forward to this week. And hopefully we may talk to Travis Miller here in the next break from Boiler Upload, and we'll get his thoughts on the opening weekend of the Big Ten, Purdue, and what will be coming up next. We've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We'll be back to it. Back to the Hard Truth Studios, as a matter of fact. This is Indiana Sports Beat Radio, now brought to you by Hard Truth Distilling. Right after this.
This segment is brought to you by the Rusty Gator.
Where is the link? Or never mind, I'll just get it myself. Paste, send. Sent. Boom. All right. Travis Miller's going to join us as well. What's up, homie?
Hey, how are you doing this morning?
Oh, well, I could use a vacation day from the vacation day.
Those are usually, that's usually advisable, yes.
How about you?
I am good. Purdue won as expected on Saturday.
Yeah, are they off this week or?
They are off this week because I believe under the original incarnation of the schedule, they were supposed to have a conference game this week and then play Indiana State next. They were supposed to have a conference game this past weekend and then play Indiana State this week. But then the whole conference realignment crap hit, and they moved the Indiana State game to this past Saturday, so they would play on the opening weekend.
Well, Indiana has to play on a damn Friday this week. I hate that.
Oh, we've got 2 Friday games, so
2? Oh,
yeah,
that's criminal. That's criminal.
Oregon and Michigan State.
My chair, I don't like it rocking this. Who knew to be doing that stuff? Nice little background.
Oh, well, thank
20
you.
seconds.
I'm at the office today, so.
10 seconds.
This segment is brought to you by the Fresh Fork in Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday as we hit September, baby, and we have hit college football as week 1 is now in the books. All Big Ten teams have played. All Big Ten teams have a win, with the exception of Minnesota, who lost one they had in hand to North Carolina at home up there in Minnesota. But everybody else gets a win. Travis Miller joining us here on the Hard Truth Studios. And the hard truth for this weekend was it went pretty much it was chalk for the Big Ten, baby. Most people got the wins we expected, Travis. They got them in the fashion that we expected, although there were some games that were very close that we'll talk about because both Purdue and Indiana will cross over and play some of those teams. But Purdue getting off to a great start. Hudson Card with a great weekend. They put 50 on the board and handle Indiana State as one would expect them to.
Oh, yeah. What I like about this is a game that was never even remotely in doubt. Purdue was in control from the beginning, got a stop, went down and scored on their first possession. The lone mistake I would say they had is they had a fumble and Indiana State recovered in Indiana State territory as Purdue was driving to get another touchdown. But I mean, I believe the backups got 2 scores, and that's really the only thing you can take from this is Purdue did exactly what they were supposed to do. I don't know what you can learn from it, but it was a no contest from the beginning, and that's what you expect with these games, and that's what you want from these games. You certainly don't want to have what happened with Oregon and Idaho, and that game was a little dicey into the fourth quarter for the Ducks.
I guarantee. Well, not only that, we've heard so much about Oregon being the second team or the team to be talking about besides Ohio State. USC to me jumped into that conversation real fast and says, not so fast, my friend. And I don't know if they're not that team that should be in that second slot right there behind Ohio State after their
they certainly have the best win of anybody right now in the Big Ten. So like you said, everything else was chalk. Northwestern really kind of struggled on. I don't want to call it a home field. I want to call it whatever that field is they're playing on because it looked worse than I thought it would look. But they did get the win and everything. So it's what was expected. I thought Michigan was a little bit shaky. That score looks better than the actual game was because I know Fresno State. I believe it was a one-score game into the fourth quarter, and Purdue learned last year that Fresno State's a tough out. No matter who you play, they are going to give you a really solid game, and that's what they did with Michigan.
Team formerly coached by Kalen DeBoer. He came from and went back to before going in between stops to Indiana to go up to Washington, but absolutely. And a bigger win or a big surprise was Notre Dame getting that. That was a huge win that they came up with over Texas A&M.
Texas A&M is perennially the most overrated team in the nation. So, I mean, they're basically Wisconsin with a much larger budget and a bigger ego. That's probably taken up away from Wisconsin, given what Wisconsin's been able to accomplish, winning multiple Big Ten championships and multiple Rose Bowls. So, but yeah, it was a good win to go on the road for Notre Dame. They kind of controlled that. It was a bit more of a defensive struggle than I thought it would be, but it'll be interesting to see how Purdue matches up with Notre Dame here in 2 weeks because that's Purdue's next game. The Irish have Northern Illinois this coming week. That's a game that they should win comfortably. And it's entirely possible that Purdue's unranked team versus a top 5 team, Voodoo, will be in effect in Ross-Ade Stadium in a week and a half.
Yeah, not only that, for Notre Dame, they don't have a lot of opportunities to get big wins. And if they're not quite as, if that win is not as good as it really appears to be, which you could be exactly right, because Texas A&M is coming off of the Jimbo Fisher fiasco and all of that. So not really sure where they are, but while they look like a big win on paper, they don't really have not to dismiss Purdue or anybody else, but they don't have a high-end game until the end of the year when they'll take on USC. They play in a watered-down ACC, so they're not getting a stretch there. This is a major opportunity for Purdue to get what would be seen as a massive win for the Boilermakers.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's kind of the next step that you want to see out of the Ryan Walters regime here, is you want to see them go out and pull one of those upsets. Purdue has a history of winning games just like this, where they are unranked, but, they're kind of feisty and everything, and they catch a team in the top 5 or the top 10 off guard, usually in Ross-Ade Stadium. So I know my big prediction for the year is that they would get one of the big 3 of Notre Dame, Oregon, or Penn State at home, and I stand by that. I think they'll pull one of those games off. I'm not sure how. If you're looking at this past weekend, probably the toughest one would be Penn State, if I'm going to be totally honest. But Purdue's offense looked really solid on Saturday. It's not so much that, yes, you have to take a grain of salt with the opponent, but it's hard to do what Hudson Card did on Saturday against anybody, where you only have one incompletion. And he spread the ball around to a lot of different receivers. It's not like just one guy was open all day. So I was encouraged by that. And obviously a huge step up in weight class for their next game, but they're going in with as much momentum as you can. So it'll be exciting to see what happens.
The rest of the Big Ten went pretty much as we thought. Ohio State is the team of that's being picked to be the leader of the league at the moment, but they won how they were supposed to win. A lot of teams did, and then though Michigan, Northwestern, UCLA, Michigan State, it was like you got to win, but didn't exactly light the world on fire for any of those teams. Northwestern winning 13-6, UCLA winning by a field goal, Michigan State winning by 6. So I don't know how many of those teams are on Purdue's schedule. I know that Indiana has all of them on their schedule. So that's something forward to Hoosier fans to look forward to. But I'm sure that there are some of those matchups that will cross over to Purdue.
Yeah, Purdue does have to go to Michigan State at the end of the season. I believe it's the week before they play Indiana. And that's one of those games I think Purdue has to get if they're going to go to a bowl game, because the margin of error is just so small. They also played Northwestern. They played Northwestern in Ross-Ade Stadium, and I think that's a game that Purdue also needs to get. If you're able to get both of those and beat Illinois and Oregon State, suddenly that's looking pretty solid there. And I think they could get one more win against the rest of the schedule and get to 6-6. And that would be a step forward under Ryan Walters and to get to the postseason. And so far it looks like, they passed the first test with flying colors, and we'll see what happens against Notre Dame. And I like their chances against Michigan State and Northwestern down the road, because neither one of those teams were that impressive.
I didn't say that Notre Dame was overrated, but I'm not exactly opposed to that. I think that we'll find out. Purdue will give us an exact ranking of where Notre Dame is, because that will raise up. If Purdue could get a win, that would definitely raise their stature and lower Notre Dame's. But yeah, we don't get a true indication, because, like I said, Notre Dame won't play anyone again that's expected, that's ranked at this moment until the end of the season, which that's a little weird. They usually have these schedules that are tougher than most. I guess they're getting smart and saying not as much this time.
I think they've got Louisville, and I believe Louisville was on the fringe of the rankings, and I think Louisville does have to go up to South Bend. Louisville got them last year in Louisville, so that'll be an interesting one. Louisville's a solid team, not great, but still pretty good. They had a great first year under Jeff Brom, and he has a lot of returning talent there and everything else. And I think that'll be an interesting game to see what they do to the Irish.
Absolutely. And so what were your takes coming out of the game? For Purdue, I know that they looked very good, even though it was against an Indiana State team. It's probably one of the, I hate to say this for Sycamore fans, but their program is just not very good. Indiana and Purdue have both just beat them to smithereens here lately. But Purdue will get a good test coming up next. And again, from what I saw from Notre Dame, I don't know that Purdue cannot pull off the upset. I think that that's a possibility, especially the fact that it is going to be in West Lafayette, although that will give a lot of Notre Dame fans opportunity to slide in there to some of those stands.
Yeah, and that'll be curious to see because Purdue actually sold out their entire season ticket allotment this year. And I think a lot of that was probably Notre Dame fans buying season tickets and selling the other 5 games. You probably had some Oregon people do that, some Nebraska people do that, some Penn State people do that. But they're expecting a sellout crowd, and it's the first time since 2013 that Notre Dame has come to West Lafayette. This is a rivalry that they played each other for 7 decades, every year. Until the 2014 season. So it's good to have this back. It's a trophy game. I know Purdue is definitely going to be looking forward to it. I really like the way that Hudson Card spread the ball around because he not only had 4 touchdown passes, he had them to 4 different receivers. And you got to, the running game was pretty solid. I know that the backups, they had a big long run by like the 3rd string running back that ended up being a touchdown. Devin Maccabee, only 11 or 12 carries, but he was still pretty close to 100 yards. So I was impressed that the offense looked about as smooth as possible. And then defensively, you have Will Helt from Carmel had a really big game, and he looks like a very promising new defender coming off the edge there. And if Notre Dame continues to have some issues with their offensive line, that could be some problems for them.
Absolutely. Speaking of the Notre Dame schedule, Northern Illinois, Purdue, Miami of Ohio, Louisville, Stanford, Georgia Tech, Navy, Florida State, Virginia, Army, USC. Not exactly daunting. Florida State, man, they're already 0-2. That is, not only are they 0-2 to start the season, they're 0-2 in the ACC. Both of these have been conference games.
And that was a butt kicking last night. The final score was only 2 scores. But that was a butt kicking. Boston College dominated that game. And, oh, man, you knew they were in trouble when Boston College, I believe, had the ball for 14:09 of the first quarter.
People, first quarter last, that meant that they did not have the ball for 51 seconds?
Yes, 51 seconds. That's ooh, I mean,
that's almost impossible. That's almost impossible to do.
I know, man. And they ran it down their throats all night long, and it was wild to see. And they did it on the road too. So I think there's some major alarm bells for Florida State. You got to ask if they're going to even make a bowl game at this point, let alone talking about the playoff or something.
Playoffs? They've got all those people that are causing all the trouble trying to get out of the ACC, and they're like, you better focus on winning some games, boys, because it ain't looking good, and it's not living up to your argument. So they've got that going for them. This week, what's on the agenda for the Boilers this week?
Bye week, dreaded bye week. So Purdue came out pretty healthy from the opener. I think it's just they get an extended time to recruit. They get an extended time to prepare for Notre Dame game that is going to be one of the biggest games in Ross-Ade in quite a while. I don't know.
Yes.
I don't think you're going to put it up there with that 2018 game against Ohio State. That was just a magical game, and there was so much behind that. But it's going to be
Ohio
big.
State was a big time team. I mean, Notre Dame is big time in name right now, although they are ranked in the top 10. I think that is BS. They're not a top 10 team, but they are always going to, whenever Notre Dame comes to town, it's Notre Dame. It's like the circus coming, baby. They bring it. But that nothing will eclipse that Ohio State game. But if they were to beat Notre Dame, it may not eclipse that, but it doesn't matter because that's 5 years ago, and this is today, and this is Ryan Walters, and this is a new everything, and they need this game as badly as they needed that game.
Yeah, and I think if you look at that, Purdue could get off to a really solid start. They have to go out to Oregon State the following week, and then they open the season against Nebraska at home, or the Big Ten season against Nebraska at home, and that'll be a pretty interesting game because Nebraska
That's going to be a tough game.
Prove it to me in the Big Ten, Nebraska. Prove it to me in the Big Ten first. Congratulations, you beat UTEP. I'm not going to get that excited, much like I'm not that excited that Purdue blew out Indiana State.
Right. But the fact that they did it, though, the difference is Purdue did it with Hudson Card, who is a veteran. They did it with a true freshman quarterback, which was what the question was. So I'm like, okay, he answered a lot of questions there. So we'll see about that. Man, appreciate it as always. Look forward to doing it again next week, and we'll see how things come around Purdue off this week. It's got to be weird having a bye week right after week one. You wait for the season to get started, and then it's like, okay, take a break.
Oh, well, we do have Bama this week in football, but it's metric football. The women's soccer team is hosting Alabama, so we finally get Bama in football.
Well, there you go, buddy. Appreciate you. Travis Miller from Boiler Upload. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you for having me, Jim.
Absolutely, as always. Great to have Travis here at the Hard Truth Studios as we get week one in the books of college football. That wasn't everything that was going on over the weekend. Like I mentioned, Indiana had a basketball reunion. I got to see some guys, hang out with them afterwards, after the game. That was fun. Dinner with Charlie Miller and Mike Lewis and his wife, and had fun with that. And Five Lefts was there as well. So a great weekend. The weather turned out to be good. There was the tailgating was out there. I could kind of tell the crowd wasn't going to be what you had hoped or thought it would be. Yet, but that's that. So we'll just have to let the people decide. They're either going to be a part of it or not. That's on them. But Indiana with a game this week coming up that we'll talk about more as we get through this week. Although a short one, which is good. Because we're already to Wednesday tomorrow. Blows my mind. We're already at hump day by the time we get back tomorrow to do this all again. Man, I'm looking forward to it. But I was happy to have Don Fischer on today. Sorry we had to cram him in with Mike DeCourcy and squeeze all those guys in. But after being off yesterday, you got to make do with what you got, right? Ed says Florida State is just the third team in the FBS in the last 45 years to lose their first games as double-digit favorites. That's a great stat, Ed. Not only that, I wonder how many top 10 teams have lost their first games of the year. But Florida State was overrated. They keep doing this stuff, man. I mean, I don't know. Why was Florida State thought so highly of? I have no idea, but I don't want to get off on that road. Congratulations to Chase Briscoe again. I have to work to try to get him on. Five, and great hanging out with you, man, and seeing you was awesome. So we look forward to doing this again tomorrow as Rick Bozich will join us, Kyle Neddenrip, Dylan Sin. Saw Dylan at the game as well, so looking forward to that. Cannot thank you guys enough. Appreciate you. Big thanks to Don Fischer. Big thanks to Mike DeCourcy and Travis Miller, along with Chronic Hoosier, for joining us here. Most importantly, thanks to each and every one of you. Skylar for keeping us between the white lines. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.